Hey, how y'all doing? I hope well. It's your pal Melissa Joy. We're going to talk about fabric dye. So one of the things that I have noticed is that there is a lot, and I mean a lot of tie-dye videos right now. Is that a pandemic thing? Is tie-dyeing the new bread? You know, is it a what's old is new again thing? Is it people are just bored at home? I don't know. I'm very curious. But it got me thinking that probably there are people out there who have stuff that has faded, and they love, maybe they love the way it fits, or, they loved it when it was, I don't know, one color and they want to change it. We're going to talk about that today, and we're going to talk about the cheapest way to do that. There are a lot of dyes out there. There is a silk dye. It's from a brand called Aljo. It comes up with beautiful colors for your silks, but you need to wear a respirator. Absolutely. It's very caustic, and there's a lot of science involved. There's Protein dyes, which are beautiful, but they're not cheap. We're going to talk about the cheapest dye that you can get, which is Rit Fabric Dye. Rit Fabric Dye you can get at your big box store. I'd normally say Kmart, but Kmart doesn't exist anymore, so that just makes me sound old. So go to your big box store or your grocery store or get it online. There's all sorts of colors. You can play with your colors and mix them and match them to whatever you want. So when you're going to dye at home, what you're going to need is a dedicated pot, because you're not going to want to cook your food in this after. You can run to your big box store where you're going to also buy your fabric dye and buy like a lobster pot or just a big pot, a wooden spoon, which you can get at the dollar store. You can get like 3 for $1. You're going to wear rubber gloves, and you are going to wear a mask. And one of the things you can wear actually is your corona mask, because you don't want to breathe this stuff in. I have done times where I have not worn a mask when I've dyed things, and then later on when I sneeze, I have bright yellow boogers. It's also good for when you're working with glitter, because glitter boogers aren't fun either. That is probably more than I expected to talk about boogers. Let's get into it. You start by wetting your stuff down. You can use your sink. I'm using a pot. So, I have a confession to make also. When I was a kid and a young dumb punk rocker, I dyed my hair with Rit Fabric Dye. I shouldn't tell you how I did it, but I'm going to. You also don't need to do this now, because there's so many fantastic brands out there that you can get whatever color you want, and you're not relying on like one brand. I dyed, I mixed up the dye, put it in a bucket, flipped over my head, and let it soak for 45 minutes. The color was great. I don't recommend doing it. My hair wasn't necessarily damaged, but it wasn't good. Learn from my mistakes. Fill up your lobster pot, put it on the stove, and turn on the stove, because you got to get it to a boil. Take some water out of the pot if you're using a powder dye, because you need to dissolve the dye. You should always test your sample to make sure you like the color. If you are using a liquid dye, you can pour it directly in. Put your project in the dye water and start stirring briskly. When you have reached the color that you think you would like, pull it out of the dye and start rinsing it. You can rinse it in the sink. I'm using a pot for this. And then eventually you'll take it to your washing machine where you can wash it out. Hang your project to dry. And these are the final results. I'm very pleased. So you realize that you gotta go get some soft scrub to scrub and clean. What is this? It's glorified dye. Stay tuned for the dye-off between Dynamo Black Bleach and Rit Fabric Dye.